What up, New York Giant Nation? It is your boy, Mac the Giants fan. Got my guy right here, Adam Costas. Y'all know what it is. It's the Week 16 edition of the Real Deal NFC East Round-Up. Punch that intro, baby. What is going on, everybody out there in the world? Today, man, how y'all doing today, man? I want to lead off the show real quick, just before me and Adam get started. We want to acknowledge the passing of one of the NFL's all-time greats, man. True ambassador of the game, man. Just want to say rest in peace to the legendary Franco Harris, 72 years young, man. Unfortunately, was passed away sometime either late last night or early this morning. And Franco Harris was just one of the. He's a great person, man. He was on the receiving end of one of the greatest plays in NFL history, the immaculate reception. One of the things he's most famous for, and like I said, just been a great ambassador of the game. The Steelers actually were going to be retiring his jersey, putting his jersey up into the Ring of Honor. We're retiring it this weekend. Unfortunately, he passed away short of that ceremony, man. But Franco Harris was a true ambassador of the game. I just want to send my condolences to his family, his friends, and the NFL and the sports world in general. Just lost another great one today, man.
Yeah, man, it's sad, that Franco Harris is, passed away. Like you said, when you watch NFL films, one of the plays that comes up the most is the immaculate reception. And, when you think about it, there's always controversy. Those that are alive will say, he didn't catch it. It wasn't real. And those on the other side say, it was a great play. And, it's funny because we've seen some of those plays in the history of our game. That was a playoff game. That's why it was even bigger. And then you look at Chandler Jones, what he did with New England and those type of plays. So they will always live in infamy, no matter how long, no matter how old you are, you'll always remember that play. NFL films will always replay that play, and you'll be able to talk about it for a long time. And he's not just a man of one play. He is a man who has decent numbers, Hall of Fame numbers, as a matter of fact. And his Pittsburgh teams won 4 Super Bowls in an era where, it was not necessarily hard to do, but they were the first real dynasty that we can talk about, right? The Pittsburgh Steelers of the 70s.
Absolutely, they were, man. And the 70s Steelers dominated pro football throughout the entire decade of the 70s. And Franco Harris was a part of all of those great teams, man. And it's a sad day, man, in the football world, man. But we know how life is. We know how the world works, man. Unfortunately, no one's here forever, and we just lost another legend today.
Well, he is here forever because he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So he will never be forgotten. His legacy will always be a part of that Pittsburgh fabric. And again, like I said, his play will always be played in NFL films, montages, or just in general.
Absolutely. You couldn't have said it any better, man. But now it's time to get this show on the road. And we are going to take it to Chicago first.
The Windy City.
The Windy City, the Monsters of the Midway, hosted the Philadelphia Eagles.
More like not the Monsters of the Midway.
The former Monsters of the Midway.
Yeah. The team formerly known as the Monsters of the Midway, right?
Hosting the mighty Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday, man. And I tell you what, man, this game was not what people expected it.
They gave all they had, man.
Everything they can handle. Gave the Eagles everything they can handle and some, man. But they still came up a little bit short, as you see, with the score. The Eagles winning this game 25-20 down over in Chicago. Jalen Hurts got off to a very slow start in this one, man. Had a few turnovers, man. I think he matched his interception total in the first half of this game. Interception total for the whole season in the first half of this game, if I'm not
Right.
mistaken.
Well, that they come in bunches. That's what happens.
And he got off to a slow start, but absolutely proved to be once again the difference maker,
I
and
mean,
and 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 the reason why this team was still able to overcome a pretty shoddy first half of football
he
and
threw
get the
two
job done
interceptions.
against Chicago. Oh, he threw two interceptions. I'm sorry, I don't mean to, add more on, but either way, he had a pretty rough first half. And they was, like I said, on the strength of him, man, they were able to still overcome. Like I said, he had those two turnovers, but he also gave him three rushing touchdowns. So
I mean,
this dudes can what can this dude really not do, man?
think about it. He had two guys over 100 yards. So he had Devontae Smith with 126 yards, averaging 25.2 yards a play. That is very significant. I just want to let you know what that means, okay? We barely have a receiver average, 5 yards a play. These guys average in their catches 25. And then A.J. Brown was 9 for 181 and 20 yards a clip. Not only that, Jalen Hurts did throw for 315 yards and rushed for 61 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, he played like the MVP. Okay. Whether or not, it doesn't always show up every time. Like you look at touchdowns, right? A lot of people are going to look at this game. Oh, he threw for 315, but no touchdowns. Yeah, but he had 3 rushing touchdowns and he impacted the game in that regard. Not only that, you got to think that he commanded the game with his passing. Okay. Even though they rushed for over 100 yards, they didn't have an individual rush for over 100 yards, but they had 2 guys who basically had he went to 2 guys all day, and that was A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Hey, Bears, so you may want to cover those guys, will you?
I
Um,
mean, seriously, not Devontae Smith so much because I need him for fantasy, my fantasy playoff run. But you know,
oh God. Oh man, that was great talk the other day where I said, Mac, everybody's on your fantasy team, and he's like, well, excuse me, I'm in the playoffs. I said, all right, man. But on the other side of it, Justin Fields had missed only 7 passes. He threw for 152 and 2 touchdowns. He also ran for 95 yards. So you're starting to see the maturation of the Bears and probably the maturation of Justin Fields. I wouldn't be surprised if he takes a leap like Hurts next year and becomes a little bit better passer and more dynamic because he's keeping that team in games. But let's really chat this up. The Eagles probably looked a little down to their opponent, but even when they play their B game, they somehow still or C game, they still somehow pull it out. Unlike another team we'll mention in a little bit. And this game to me was just a tale of what the Eagles have been all season. They find ways to get it done, no matter who they play, no matter what. That's the mark to me of a championship team. And I'm kind of excited to see what they're going to do in the playoffs. I hate to say that because I'm looking for a team in red from the Bay Area to meet them in Philadelphia because I think it would be an epic matchup to see Jalen Hurts, who, by the way, has a shoulder injury, and we'll see how that affects this team going forward. But I would love to see them against San Francisco in the championship game.
I mean, that would be one hell of a matchup, man. You're talking about this high-powered offense against that defense. What more can you ask for as a football fan? I mean, so there's this Eagle football team. Like you said, they just gonna keep finding ways to get it done. That's the mark of a good football team. It just shows you that even through when things ain't going quite their way, they'll always be able to just still pull their head above the water, man. Like I said, this is why even with this injury now, I still keep Jalen Hurts very much in the MVP conversation. I mean, you have to because this guy started off the game in a way where a lot of other quarterbacks would have just snowballed and just had an absolute terrible game. This kid shook all of that off and ended up still having a really good game. Let's face it, he still overall had a really good game minus the interceptions. I know you got to still count those and acknowledge those, but overall, I mean, he put 3 touchdowns on the board for his team. Matter of fact, he put the 3 touchdowns on the board for his team. So this guy still put his team on his back. Said, I screwed up a little bit in the first half. I got y'all guys. Come ride this wave, man. And he brought them home, man. And they hung on and they got the job done as a unit. Like
That
you said, 2 wide receivers over 100 yards. It's just that's insane, man. Insane numbers. What's going on, Philly B?
And that's what happens in these games, what we're talking about. And this is what I'm talking about when I talk about complementary football. You have one guy who is taking over the entire football game, right? And that is Jalen Hurts. You have another guy, if their run game ain't working, it's at least the pass game that's working. You got everything that for example, if the Giants run game doesn't work, they're kind of in trouble. It's not like they can upgrade and get a better pass or anything like that right now. So that's why when I tell you that guys like Daniel need to step up when that happens, that's the truth.
Absolutely, man. You got to be able to elevate your team, put them on your back when necessary, man. That is the true sign of a franchise quarterback. And you can't keep making the excuses up about who's on the roster. The guys that are on the roster are the guys that are on the roster, man. That just is what it is. And yes, we understand on paper the Philadelphia Eagles are absolutely loaded, but they get it done, and they play up to that. It's not like they have this amazing roster and they're like disappointing. No, they're showing you exactly how good they are, and that's the reason why. I mean, it's actually. I mean, I hate, like I said, I hate always sitting here praising the Eagles, telling about how good they are. But the truth is what the truth is, man. This is a really good football team, and I see the only thing I can see stopping the Philadelphia Eagles are the Philadelphia Eagles. That's it. Nothing else. And
Yeah, I think that
potentially if you rush Jalen Hurts back into the lineup prematurely, but we can talk about that in a little bit.
right. We don't want to. Well, let's dive into that. We don't necessarily need to worry about that, but we'll see how good it is. And this is the time where you've played enough clout where maybe you decide to rest them a little bit, right? And we'll see what Gardner Minshew is. And then you know what? Then the MVP voting can start. Because I have a feeling, and I don't want to tell you my preview too much, but I think they might struggle a little bit. You know?
Well,
And
it's not
so
going to be quite the same, so I agree with that. It's not going to be quite the same, but their roster is made up of some really capable guys, and I think Gardner Minshew is a very capable backup quarterback. So, in my opinion, of Gardner Minshew.
yeah, well, Gardner Minshew, Uncle Rico, as they like to call him in the Philadelphia space. Uncle Rico, if you don't know, people, that's from Napoleon Dynamite. His uncle lived in a van and had a mustache, kind of like what Gardner Minshew is. And Gardner Minshew, remember, played for the Jaguars. He was a sixth-round pick. They came in and they're like, we want Trevor Lawrence. Now, believe it or not, I don't think necessarily Gardner Minshew was bad. He didn't do much bad. He elevated that team. We'll see how he does with this team. Now, he could play himself onto a job. Who knows? Maybe he plays himself into New York's radar as a bridge quarterback. Who knows, right? This is a chance for him to shine on a team that's good, and we'll really see if it's the weapons or if it's the quarterback going forward.
Well, I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. I think right now Jalen Hurts is kind of starting to elevate towards a level of being considered in that special category. But Gardner Minshew, you got to remember that this guy started his career off in Jacksonville. Nick Foles had signed a big contract to go down there and be the starter. Got banged up the week one game. Gardner Minshew started the rest of the damn season for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it was a bad Jacksonville Jaguar team. But he had some moments of looking like a pretty competent quarterback.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I remember that season. Late in that season, I picked him up on my fantasy team late that season. I remember.
See where it comes back to, folks.
His rookie year. So I know that Gardner Minshew was doing some decent things down there on a bad football team. This guy, you're going to insert him into a lineup with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and the running game and this offensive line and the defense on the other side of the ball. He's, like I said, a very capable backup. He's definitely one of the better backups in the league, in my opinion.
Bro.
So I think the Eagles, they're going to lose a little something because he still can't do the things Jalen Hurts does. But at the same time, I think he can drop back and throw the ball to A.J. Brown. I think he can do that. I think he can absolutely handle that.
I would say I would agree with you there, but I would rather have switched opponents here. In January 1st, on that Sunday after New Year's, they play the Saints. That would be a game I would love to be like, all right, Garner, go play, get some straps and snaps against the Giants, the same thing. You're playing the Cowboys. So this is going to be a big test. It's the middle of the afternoon game, America's game of the week, as they like to call it on Fox. So we're gonna get to see a lot of Gardner Minshew. So while you're doing your Christmas festivities, whatever that might be, your Christmas Eve festivities, or if you're doing nothing, hey, sit back, relax, and watch this game because this game here will kind of navigate where the NFC playoff picture might be going. And
Absolutely, man.
so we'll see. I mean, like even the Viking game against the Giants, people think the Vikings are going to look over them. There's a lot of implications going on. So again, like what I'm saying with Gardner Minshew is this. We know Gardner Minshew is capable of doing it. Will there be a significant drop off? Because here's wherein lies the issue, right? When you get a quarterback, what can they not do? Jalen Hurts adds that running element that Gardner Minshew doesn't necessarily do. He can scramble a little bit. He can, get out
he's
there.
Not a statue at all, by no means, but he's not Jalen
Right.
Hurts. Yeah.
But he's not. They're not really going to be doing the RPO strictly with him.
Still there, Adam? Okay.
Sorry. God had a coughing fit. Sorry, folks, a little under the weather. So, he's not the same kind of quarterback as Hurts. Like, so for example, I don't want to use this. People hate it, but Tyrod Taylor. You don't have to change the offense when Tyrod comes in because he does similar things to Daniel, better or worse. They're kind of similar players. Gardner Minshew are almost contrasting players in the fact that you're probably going to be under center a little bit more. You're probably going to run more play action. You're going to probably rely heavily on Miles Sanders as opposed to Jalen Hurts to, as that added dimension with that running. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, Gardner Minshew was more of a scrambler. He'll see an opportunity, he'll definitely take it, but definitely not that fluent runner that like a Jalen Hurts is. So that's not. They can pretty much take that out of the playbook. That's going to cue Miles Sanders have to step up in the backfield, you know what I mean, and take on.
We'll see how good their offensive line is
of the running duties there. I wouldn't even be surprised in this game if you really get that three-headed monster of Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, and the little guy Boston Scott a lot more in this game just because of that factor. If Jalen Hurts doesn't play, because apparently he's still not technically ruled out.
And this is what we want to bring up the MVP voting for, because if you take Jalen Hurts off the field, maybe they don't win that game against Chicago, okay? Because of what he did in the passing game, and he did just enough in the run game to put this team over the top. We'll find, again, questions will be answered on Saturday afternoon. So, while I don't think it's an immediate scare, the Eagles have the right to kind of reserve judgment and let him relax for a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if he's healthy, takes a couple snaps in the Giant game just to wet his palate before going off, only because, you don't want him to not get into the game. Like, who knows what's going to happen? I don't know. People hide from it. If they say that he'll need surgery at the end of the year, maybe you sit him to the end of the year. Who knows? But it seems like the Eagles always have this issue. Last time they had a backup quarterback come in, they ended up going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's true indeed also. I mean, we saw what happened with that story. That was basically the beginning of the end of the Carson Wentz era in Philly, to be quite frank.
Right. Well, I don't think that's going to happen here, though. I don't believe
see that. So. I don't even remotely foresee that happening. But
they both played MVP level. They both got injured late in the season. It's kind of eerily similar to that.
It is. And if Gardner, but Jalen Hurts' injury is not a season ender, so that's a difference. Also a big difference. So he will be back on the field, whether it's this Saturday or next upcoming weeks.
And I know people are mad, but this is what happens when you're a running quarterback. Guys like the guy on the Bears will make tackles and do that because A, that's how they're taught to tackle, and B, I wouldn't be surprised if your defensive lineman says give him a little extra business on the tackle when he's a runner. I mean, that's gamesmanship.
As my days from playing football, definitely not at the NFL level, obviously, but regardless, my days of playing football, I know what my coaches say. You see that fucking quarterback, you get a chance to take a shot at that quarterback, you take a shot. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, within the rules, but you take a shot.
Right. And so you're prone when that happens. And listen, folks, it happens on every level in high school, even in Pee Wee. The same thing. If you're going to go out there and play with a gimpy leg, guess what? I grew up in the Bill Parcells towards the end of the era, but that football was still there in the 90s. And if you got a bad knee, they're going to test you out. Your coach is going to say, put your helmet on his knee. We're going to make sure that knee is 100%. Right? So the quarterback comes out and does running. What do you think is going to happen when he's getting tackled by 300-pound men? They can't, 300-pound men. You see them every week fighting linemen. You think that guy who just left his feet to tackle a quarterback can now adjust midair to kind of land softly, it's not going to happen. And so that's why I keep telling people you got to invest in the backup quarterback, because if you look what's happened over in Arizona, they've got a guy who's in Colt McCoy. Let's be honest, it's kind of garbage, but he's a capable backup, but he's not a guy that's going to save your season, right? And right now he's in concussion protocol, so it doesn't even matter about that. So you need to bring in players to back these guys up. Now, will you use them? Are people like, oh, you're going to waste a valuable asset? Well, who cares? So now you have a good quarterback behind him in case Jalen Hurts gets injured, because guess what? Running quarterbacks, it's been proven in the history of the NFL, as they get older, they get a little bit more banged up. So you're going to have a guy back there. And the other thing is, if you decide you want to trade him, because look what the Patriots did when they got a backup quarterback, and Jimmy G. He played a few games. He didn't even play like Matt Castle. Matt Castle had a whole season. He played a few games. And here he is. He's traded to San Francisco, and the rest is history, as they say. So I think the backup quarterback is going to start to grow in prominence across the league, especially with more people going to RPOs.
Philly Sports Talk podcast. What's going on, brother? Said Trace McSorley's going to be starting for him. So, yeah, that's exactly what we're just talking about right
Exactly.
here. Quarterbacks have
Trace McSorley.
So much more valuable over the course of the last couple of years. What's up, Tudo, too? I just want to say what's up to Tudo as well. One of the biggest supporters of the channel. Really appreciate all the love you be showing, man. Appreciate it, Tudo.
It's true. I think I was banging the table last year for it, and we got Tyrod Taylor. This year I'm going to bang for it, even though I know, and we'll get to the Giants in a minute, about like the bridge thing, the bridge discussion. You still need it. It's still a position on the field that you can always upgrade, and you need to bring people into your system so they can learn it, so that you're not like running these idiots out there like a Mike Glennon or these people who've only run the system for a few months. You're hoping that you don't have to do that. Like, you think Arizona wants to use Trace McSorley? No, but they knew they needed him because of freaking Colt McCoy and Kyler Murray. Both guys are tiny, even Trace McSorley is. And so he kind of does more what Kyler Murray does. They're probably an upgrade. He's probably an upgrade over Colt McCoy, if you ask me. But, he's Trace McSorley. So we'll see what happens going forward if Gardner Minshew can keep this ship in the right direction.
Absolutely, man. But about to move on to the next game here. And we'll get back to the Eagles a little bit later in the program.
All you Eagle fans out there, look at your chops.
Going to go down to the Panhandle, Jacksonville, Florida. The Jacksonville Jaguars hosting the America's team, the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, Jerry's not coming out today, fellas. He is not calling us up today.
And this was an overtime thriller. It was a great game. Jacksonville winning this one in overtime on their home field against the Dallas Cowboys. A surprise twist to this, man. I think a lot of people did not see this one going quite that way, even though the Jacksonville Jaguars have been surging lately. Yeah, absolutely. And Trevor Lawrence is starting to look like a franchise quarterback. So, yep. I mean, it just is what it is. It's starting to – he's had put together two great games back-to-back, man.
Take notes, Giant fans.
And he's two straight back-to-back really, really sensational games for Trevor Lawrence. And they got the job done in overtime. Threw a 40-burger up on the Dallas Cowboys. That defense, they scored 40 points against.
Well, one was a walk-off interception, so we have to give 7 points to the defense. But they put at least 35 up on the Cowboys, which is kind of stunning to me because the Cowboys are like a Jekyll and Hyde team. Every time you think they're going to be doing big things, like against the Texans, right? So they beat the Giants. I think they play the Texans next. They have a rough go at it with them, but you're like, whatever. They're overlooking them. And then they play the Jags, and all my Cowboy fans are like, oh, easy peasy. Oh, no, excuse me. They played the Giants, they played the Colts, then they played the Texans, and then they played Jaguars. And after blowing the doors off the Colts, essentially, embarrassing them, they come back and get, have a tight game with the Texans, pull it out somehow, some way, by hook or by crook. And in this game, they overlooked the Jaguars, who are like, screw you, we're getting better, with Josh Allen and Trevor Lawrence, right? The Josh Allen that plays defense, folks, and Trayvon Walker. on defense, they're kicking ass. And they made hell for Dak Prescott. They made his life miserable. And I know the Cowboys offensive line is, got a little banged up here and there, but let's be honest, Dak is a tale of two different halves. He didn't play well in the first half, and then the second half he kind of resurged back. But this is what happens when the Cowboys do this. This is the difference between the Giants right now and the Jaguars. The Jaguars in this game stole a game against a better team because they're playing better football and can score points. See what happens when you score points? You get an interception return for a touchdown that changes the game all of a sudden, right? So for me, I think the Cowboys are, I think they were overlooking the Jaguars to that Philadelphia game. Like, oh, we're going to mop the floor with this team. This team is, 4-8. They're not going to beat us. Don't worry about it. We'll stomp them out and walk and go down to Philly and try to set up that matchup. Well, guess what? Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson had other ideas.
Absolutely. I mean, there's been some chirping too this week, man. People starting to really, really question Dak Prescott, man. And is he the guy that can get the Cowboys over the hump, man? It's been a lot of that going on, especially as we got to this loss. I mean, coming off 2 interceptions, like you said, he played a lot better in the second half of this game, but he put this team in a bad way in a couple of different spots in this game, man. Here.
I'm not sure what's happening with him because it seems like he's been doing that all season long, right? In the Bengal game to start the year or Tampa Bay game to start the year, he came out throwing 2 interceptions and got injured, right? Then he comes back his first game and same thing kind of happens. He throws a couple interceptions and then comes back in the second half, roaring back. You can't live like that. You can't live where you're spotting people points against these good. It works against the Giants because they have no horses. A team like that. Well, when you have a team like the Jaguars who can, can throw the ball downfield, they got weapons all across the board. It's not as easy.
I believe it's absolutely Micah Parsons, Tom. Just Micah Parsons is I think it's no team he would play on and still not wreak havoc the same way he does in Dallas, man. Micah Parsons is that dude. I don't think it matters that he's.
Well, I think Micah Parsons would be on any team doing that thing. I think the defense is legitimately good. I really do. I think they just have their moments. I think they have their moments. I really do. I don't know whether it's because McCarthy is a fat slob and he just doesn't care. Like, because it's like, how does this guy? And I was telling somebody the other day, I was like, yo, McCarthy's a good coach. No, he's not. I'm like, he had bad time management in the Texans games. He made some boneheaded decisions against Green Bay, a few weeks ago. And it just seems like his teams are always coming out and they're not consistent. But when he has them in line and they don't make stupid penalties and, lack of discipline, they're the best team in football, arguably.
I mean, they could be. I mean, like you said, they definitely could be. It is. And to me, because like I said, I was at first for a couple weeks ago, I was thinking, man, the NFC is not only is back, but they got the 2 best teams in the conference, the Cowboys and the Eagles. And then the Cowboys, had that, they won in Houston, but it was really, really suspect. And then they had this game where they just dropped the Jacksonville Jaguars, and makes you have to rethink everything, rethink that whole how you feel about the Cowboys a little bit.
Well, it's going to get back to that joke where you're like, 25 years, you haven't won a Super Bowl or whatever the hell it is now. They're creeping towards 30 years now, right? 1995. So my only thing is this. They're a Jekyll and Hyde team, but they're very good, and they're very bad at the same time. They're very undisciplined. So they'll cost themselves points in games with stupid penalties and dumb play, right? So when you let a team that's surging, like you said, it seems like the Jaguars have found their identity. They're trusting their quarterback. They're trusting what they're doing. He is the best guy on the field right now, right? Even though they have Travis Etienne, they're having that kid throw it all over the yard. He's making Kirk Cousins. He's making Christian Kirk look like a legitimate number 1 receiver. I mean. He's not.
People question that free agency signing, that contract they gave him. But I mean, he's
looking good now.
They're finding the connection down there, and he was 8 yards short of 100 yards, and Zay Jones did go over 100 yards. So also against this Cowboy defense, Trevor Lawrence almost had 200-yard receivers in this game as well, just like we were talking about earlier with the Eagles. So,
but that's what I mean by the quarterback elevating people, right? Christian Kirk is not the greatest receiver ever, right? He's a solid player, right? Zay Jones has been bounced around the league. right? So then you bring in Trevor Lawrence, who now is starting to put things together with these guys. Evan Ingram, you could argue is a bub, right? So he's making plays with the guys that are out there and not making excuses, right? Not saying, oh, we have to do this or we have to do that or we have to shorten this up. And you're starting to see the maturation of what that guy does. I sure as heck don't want to play the Jaguars, and I think the Giants were lucky; they lucked out. And they got them early on in the season when they were still trying to find out who they are. Right now, they are 3 games to go. They're still in the playoff hunt.
Absolutely, they can very much win their division down there. And just another thing, one thing I want to say, and this is kind of just going to be my cheap shot to the Cowboys today. People early in this season were telling me that Mr. Diggs down there in Dallas is the best cornerback in the league because of what he did last year. He ain't doing none of that this year. He ain't been doing none of that this year. And
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell you one thing for certain and two things for sure. People pass the ball pretty well on the Cowboys defense. That is one
they
thing that
do.
they do. They give up the big, huge chunk plays in the passing game. Hell, even the New York Giants actually got a couple off against the Dallas Cowboys, and
I
we
mean,
don't even do that. So
right,
that put
right.
that into perspective.
Zay Jones, let's just look at it. Zay Jones, who is not the greatest receiver. I don't know if Diggs was playing him. He probably was playing Kirk, but they gave up 3 touchdowns against that guy. 3 touchdowns. That guy had, before going into that year, probably had 2 touchdowns all season. Right now he has 5. Okay. So now he has 5 touchdowns. 3 of them come against the Cowboys. All right. Against the Lions, there were 2 catches for 16 yards. Against the Titans, 8 catches for 77 yards. Against the Cowboys, 6 catches, 109 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I mean, you want to talk about a coming out party, and I do believe that it's partially the quarterback as well, coming of age a little bit, growing into the pick that we think that he's going to be, and the Cowboys having some issues. Again, I have no idea. I'm not. I wish I knew a Cowboy fan who wasn't arrogant to kind of tell me what the problems are. I'm going to take a shot in the dark and say they're not giving the ball to the running backs the way they need to. I think they need to turn around and give the ball to Pollard and to Zeke Elliott and let them kind of dictate the game. And then if you need Dak Prescott to throw you back into the game because you're down or you need a quick score or you need to move the football, then do it. I think they're relying too much on Dak Prescott. And the thing is, they were supposed to run RPOs this year. That's what we heard. Oh, Dak's going to be more of a runner. I have not seen as much of that as I
No,
thought I was going to this year.
no, not at all. Like they were talking about that a lot in the off season, leading up to this season, and that you're right. I haven't seen much of it at all. Just like the same, just that same system. Dak Prescott back there doing the same things we've been accustomed to him doing. I agree 100%. They need to utilize their weapons in the backfield a lot more because Zeke is starting to get his legs under him a lot these last few weeks, and Tony Pollard is definitely a home run hitter. And I mean, they utilize Tony Pollard a lot in the passing game also as well. But at the same time, they could really just start turning around and really feeding those guys and let them wear defenses down. And that would be honestly their best bet going forward. I think that it's kind of. I think they're legitimately they're a couple of their best offensive weapons. And like you said, they got to start using them the right way. And like you said, make it because C.D. Lamb he's a great receiver. And he's a solid number one. I was questioning it a little bit to see earlier in the year to see if he could really prove himself to really be a legitimate number one top guy. I think he kind of had. I think he had. I think he's
Yeah, I mean,
slammed the
7
door
catches,
on that
126
argument.
yards.
He slammed that
And
argument on that door. But at the same time, he's still not like that Justin Jefferson, those guys like
no,
that either. So it's
he's
like
not at that level. He's more like he's not a dominating number one, but he clearly is a number one. He's a very
yeah,
good number one. He is a great number two, right? And I think they're
yeah.
trying to bring in T.Y. Hilton. I don't know what tire, how much tread he has left on the tire. And I know that they're trying to bring in Odell, and I could see next year them bringing in another receiver to complement C.D. Lamb because Noah Brown is nobody. Tony Pollard had 4 catches. They really don't have a second guy on there, and it's clearly showing. Now, C.D. Lamb is still producing, even though he's getting double teamed and seeing the number one corner. He's still producing, which means he's the number one. But if you were to bring in like they don't use Dalton Schultz had 2 catches for 15 yards. This guy was franchised. You need to utilize your weapons better. I don't know. And I don't want to keep harping on this, but there's a disarray on that offense. Defensively, I don't know what's happening either because they gave up 2 back-to-back games. They played badly on defense, and I'm wondering: are they worn down? What's happening? This game, I strongly contribute to them overlooking Jacksonville, going to Jacksonville, and kind of thinking that their talent was going to outproduce this team, and they're overlooking for that big Philadelphia game, and then they would win and be 1 game behind Philadelphia or 2 games behind Philadelphia with 3 to go, and now you're seeing that they're coming in now. The only thing that the Cowboys have going for them is they're going into a wounded animal, which is either bad, it could be good or bad. Either you're going to be putting them out of their misery early on, the Eagles, or you're going to be walking into a buzzsaw where if you're not careful, you're going to lose to Gardner Minshew.
I mean, yeah, it's going to be a big game for both of those football teams. Obviously, the Eagles will officially clinch the division with the win, and the Cowboys will still keep themselves alive for the division title with the win. So, it's going to be both teams got a lot at stake here on Saturday, man. So that's going to definitely be a fun one to watch in the 4:00 window on Saturday afternoon. But you got anything else on these Dallas Cowboys?
Jerry Jones, you got what you deserve on Sunday. So.
Absolutely, man. Because I think it probably was a little bit of some of that looking past their opponent, thinking they're just going to go in and house the Jacksonville Jaguars.
They've just played 3 booty ass teams. They played Colts, they played the Texans, and they played Jaguars with a game that everyone was talking about. Micah Parsons has already taken shots at Jalen Hurts. They didn't even play Jacksonville yet.
Yeah, so absolutely. You got to stay focused on the opponent in front of you. This is the NFL. All these guys are in the NFL, and they all hungry, man. And Jacksonville Jaguars are a well-coached football team, and I think that team is going to be a dominant team for the next couple of years down there in the AFC South. I think this is they're a draft away, another offseason away from taking over the momentum in that division away from the Tennessee Titans, and just going and being the dominant team in that division. So we'll see how that works out for them down there. But right now, they're headed in the right direction. Trevor Lawrence, like I said, is looking like a legitimate franchise quarterback now. Dallas Cowboys learned a valuable lesson on Sunday, and we'll see what they got on Saturday. We'll be talking about that a little bit later on in the show, folks. But now we're going to get to what was probably the biggest matchup of the weekend last
most boring matchup of the weekend. Had a few exciting plays, but
football game. I mean, going into the game, though, it's a game that had a lot at stake.
Right, a lot of juice, yeah.
And it was the New York Football Giants traveling down to Landover, Maryland, and taking on those Washington Commanders on Sunday Night Football, flexing to that spot. Both teams went in with an identical record of 7-5-1. One team came out 8-5-1. One team came out 7-6-1. The New York Football Giants got it done. It wasn't pretty, but they got it done. Kayvon Thibodeau. Whoa, my God, bro! This is what we in store for, brother.
Yes,
indeedy. Yes, indeedy. Kayvon Thibodeau went absolutely bananas in this game, and he was the factor. He was probably the leading reason for this New York Giant team securing this victory on Sunday, because he even put one in the end zone himself when the offense was struggling early in that football game. Kayvon Thibodeau went and strip sacked Taylor Heineke and scooped up the fumble recovery and took it into the end zone, man. And that ended up being the difference in this football game, as you see the score, 20-12. Only won by a touchdown in a 2-point conversion, but that's the difference in this game, is that our defense scoring a touchdown. Can't expect that every week. This offense has to do more. Unfortunately, has to do more.
Woof, woof is what I have to say for Kayvon Thibodeau. We have a dog, people. We have a dog. We've been craving a dog for a long time on the defensive side. Azeez Ojulari is good, but he is not the dog. We've got our dog back. We got a guy we can build the defense back. Woof, woof. That's what I'm talking about, baby. He came in, and I love this answer. I forget what it was, but it's something along the lines of, "Oh, are you ready for prime time?" And he's like, "Prime time's not ready for me." And I'm like, damn, this is what we need. We need a guy with some drip. as the kids are saying these days. A guy with some swag, a guy with some juice. Okay, we haven't had that since LT on the defensive side of the ball. I know we have great players in JPP and OC Manora and Justin Tuck, but nobody like this. Okay, this is a top 5 talent coming out right now, showing you why he's a top 5 talent, and hopefully, this is going to be. This is what he's been doing. I mean, he's been making. This is what we talk about: strip fumbles. He did it against Lamar Jackson. He did it against Tyler Heineke here. These are game-changing plays, right? And
Absolutely.
the Giants need a couple of these. You need a couple defensive scores, and you need a closer, and that's what he is. He's a closer. Did you see him resting his head in his hands after making a big tackle? We don't have that. This guy is going to have a C on his chest before you know it, because he is now the star of the defense, okay? He is the star. He brings swagger. He brings an edge. He brings a presence about him that this defense has lacked for a while, and Ojulari helps on the other side because we have our Batman and now we have our Robin. Okay, you got 2 guys who can affect the game, who are both like Umanura and who are in terms of making strip sacks. Right, those are big in the NFL. They're game changing. They're momentum changing. They're absolute. One of the best things that happens is when you have strip sacks. So he got the trifecta, the grand slam, however you want to call it. He got the strip sack, he got the forced fumble, and he scored, which is hard to do in the NFL, but he got it done. And like you said, that's the difference. It takes one play. That's the difference in a ball game. I mean, I know the defense did play a pretty good game. They got to Tyler Heineke, on multiple occasions. Tyler Heineke shows you why he's not a franchise guy, because of the decisions he makes and some of the things that were there and holding on to the football. I mean, if 300-pound man falls on me, I'm probably dropping the ball too, Dexter Lawrence. But I think Kayvon Thibodeau set the tone and set it early, because if you look at this game, the Commanders were moving the football up and down the field. Okay, they weren't really having too much keeping them from executing their offense. Then the Giants get the touchdown. Get the Commanders go downfield and score. The Giants give up a punt. They give up their score, and now it's like 7-3. You think, okay, Commanders got the ball. They're going to move the ball downfield, probably kick a field goal or something, and this game's going to be 7-6. Instead, Kayvon Thibodeau scores. They're up now 14-3, and that changed the entire complexion of the football game.
Absolutely was the game changer, man, right there. Kayvon Thibodeau's motor never stopped running in this football game, man. That kid, you talk about a coming out party on prime time, under the bright lights, in a huge game, in a huge spot. Like I said, he was absolutely the difference maker. But we need to talk about this offense, Adam, man. And some people are misconstruing some of our comments, I guess, over the course of the last few days. It's not negative.
Whining.
It's not negative when it's facts.
Right.
The offense has to do more. The offense has to do more. I can't say it any other way. It has to put up more than 13 points.
Right.
And it has to have an ability. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Adam.
We forget that they scored only 13 because the final score was 20-12, right? So people forget that the defense scored on the other side, and they're like, oh, you know what it is. The Giants had three scoring drives. 2 ended in field goals, 1 ended in a touchdown.
Absolutely. I mean, that 97-yard drive, whatever it was a great drive. No, don't get it twisted. It was a great drive.
Right.
But we need more of that.
Right. And can we throw a deep ball every once in a while?
Yeah, not one single pass over 15 air yards, man. That's not good enough, man.
You know how many yards a pass Daniel Jones averaged? 5 yards a pass. There were plays in this game that looked like I was watching Jason Garrett's offense. So to me, I'm telling you right now, and people aren't going to like this, it's both quarterback and personnel, but it has to be a little bit more quarterback than personnel, because you can't tell me these guys can't do it. It's not like they were playing the Eagles pass rush out there, right? We're playing the Commanders, who most of their pass rush comes from their interior. Montez Sweat did nothing. Deron Payne didn't do too much. Jonathan Allen didn't do too much. I know they were trying to make it an extension of the run game. That's essentially what this short pass game does, is it puts you a nice down and distance. And yes, did Daniel have a seed to Richie James on a play? Yes, but it was also, he got rid of it just in time. Let's just put it to you that way. And it was a good pass. And Richie James, unfortunately for everybody else, someone put up this stupid stat about the Daniel Jones having the most pass attempts with not an interception. He's got like 1%. It's like, listen, if you went back and we watched the tape, there's some games in there where he would have had more interceptions if there weren't for penalties and guys dropping football. So I'm not going to play into those games. The other thing is that you can't tell me these guys aren't getting open, because Richie James is getting open left and right. He's one of the highest percentage of getting open players in the league. Okay, so now it's time to take the handcuffs off this kid and throw the ball and be aggressive, because guess what's going to happen in Minnesota? Okay, if Minnesota gets behind, they have the ability to score quick. And against our defense, by the way, Adoree Jackson's not coming back. Gaylor McKinney is not on the practice report yet. And I don't think we're going to see him this year. I don't. We're now 3 weeks left in the season. I don't think we're going to see these guys. So maybe the playoffs, if that. So now you got Justin Jefferson, who's probably licking his chops watching film, knowing that Fabian Monroe is going to be covering his ass. They're definitely now going to be looking out for Darnay Holmes, who was mugging Terry McLaurin in the end zone, and it's all over Twitter, all over the internet. Everyone knows, and they're going to make a point of looking out for that. So with that, what I'm trying to get at is they're going to score points. And they've done it all year long, except for one game against the Cowboys. Okay, they've done it all year long. And in order to answer teams that score, you need to score. The only couple teams you match up with are a team like the 49ers, but their defense is so good that they don't need to worry about scoring points. And they can if they want to. They just rely on running the football, playing within their means, and letting their defense do that. The Giants aren't there yet, where you can just sit there and do. Thankfully, I said this to you, Mac, the other day. I said, thankfully, we played the Commanders and not a good team, and not a team like the Eagles with the game on the line, because I'm telling you, those times that the Eagles would have gotten to the red zone probably ended in scores, right? Twice they're in the red zone. Let's think about this, right? If they don't score that defensive touchdown, the Commanders don't need to press in the red zone. They can hand it off to Robinson, kick a field goal, and they're up 15-13 with the ball game at hand, and then they get the ball back and go down the field. Look what the Commanders did in this game in the second half. They flipped the field on one play with Jahan Dotson. Changed the whole complexion of the game, started to make the Giants start to reel a bit. Like, oh my God, we're going to need to change everything up right now. They're starting to get their receivers involved. This is what I mean. You can't just blame it on the talent and the personnel. I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. I was one. How you doing, Carlos? Thank you. Welcome to the channel, man. Like, please subscribe. Hit that thumbs up button for us, man. Me and Adam both, man. But
Tom brings up a good point.
I'm not a Giants fan, but just curious. I'm assuming y'all had a 15-20 pick in the. Yeah, we'll be somewhere maybe in the early 20s. 20 pick. Who do y'all want in this year's draft, or who would you trade up for if he's close enough to draft? I don't follow college football as much as some other people do. I don't really get into it too much until after the season. I look at positions the Giants need and look at guys then specific.
Well, if there's a quarterback, that's who they're going to make their trade up for. If Anthony Richardson can be had in the middle of the rounds, that's a guy I think they would trade up for. Everybody else, I kind of think they're going to just let it play out. As a matter of fact, I'm resigning to this. I know people. I hate Daniel. I don't think he's going to be here long term. I really don't believe that in my heart of hearts. I don't care what I heard on sights and sounds. These guys are politicians. They're never going to tell you a guy stinks. They're going to show you with their actions, right? Tay Crowder, bye. You know what I'm saying? So even if Daniel, who I believe they're going to go for a quarterback with a little bit more juice in the run game, someone like a Lamar Jackson, there's a couple guys who you can get in the second and third round who you can develop into a guy that you want. There's a guy from Louisville, I forget what his name is. Let me see if I can pull him up here. He can pass the football, and he passed. Excuse me.
Well,
excuse me. Go ahead.
No, I was going to actually go back to that drive you were talking about a few minutes ago from Washington after the big pass to Jahan Dotson. I was going to actually wanted to talk about the significance of that for the New York Giants in this game as well. And it speaks on, once again, the defense, how well the defense did play. Because they, like you said, Washington came out, flipped the field immediately, had them pinned deep, flipped the field immediately on first down with the big pass down the sideline of Jahan Dotson. And then a couple plays later, that was when Dexter Lawrence forced the fumble on Taylor Heineke while the Washington Commanders were right in scoring position. So they were in position to get points. So that's the significance of that turnover by Taylor Heineke right there. Another thing, something else that changed the game on Sunday night, because right there I was thinking as soon as that happened, they were going to at least get a field goal out the deal. You know what I mean? They were in
Right,
field goal range
right.
when the fumble occurred. So
That
it's
well, that changes the complexion. See, the Kayvon Thibodeau touchdown changes everything because again, if somehow that's just a sack instead of a fumble and they punt, right? They don't get the ball back, and the Giants do what they do. Right, score their 13 points. Guess what? The Commanders now have 12 points and are in field goal range. And again, they don't need to try to press the way they pressed. They're going to just hand it off to Brian Robinson and take the field goal and live to play another day because now they have the lead. So now you have to tell the Giants, who, by the way, weren't moving the football that well at all, right? The Giants risk a field goal late in the game because they were worried about getting up points. So they kicked the 50-yard field goal, which, again, was one of those things where it's shaky, but hey, you had to do it. So if that happens, like you said, and they flip the field, the probably the philosophy changes. They're not pressing to try to score a touchdown to get in the game because I think what they were trying to do was score a touchdown, knowing that it was the fourth quarter and they weren't going to get too many more possessions. So let's try to tie the game up, at least get a touchdown. That way, at least we can kick a field goal to win it if we need to, right, on the next drive. So if the Giants don't get the turnover strip sack, this game could be different. And that's what I mean. It's the same thing with the Raiders game that happened a year ago. When I said to people, the game plan wasn't that great, just that McKinney makes the interception that puts you over the top. This game plan wasn't that great. It's not like they did anything. They played very conservative football in their pass. I mean, they had no passes over 10 yards. None. They threw back screens. They threw behind the line of scrimmage. They made sure that everything was in front of them to kind of mitigate what would be a turnover-worthy play. And that's why Daniel Jones' numbers are so high, because he doesn't put the ball in harm's way. They don't make him. And they asked him a question, well, what is it like to not turn the ball over? Listen, if you put truth serum on that guy and Brian Daboll, he'd be like, listen, we're not letting him do anything he can't do. We're giving him 2 reads. We're giving him 10-yard routes. We're giving him things that are easy completions, high percentage completions, to make it look like he's better than he is. And that's how you look at it. That's how I look at this. Everyone's like, oh, this is such an epic game. He was poised. I've seen better games out of Daniel Jones throughout his career. I guess because it's the biggest game and he won. That's what I guess they're referring to. But overall, his performance to me was just kind of okay. It was all right. He managed the game. And that's what you're going to get out of Daniel. And that's what I think you're going to get going forward, regardless of if you bring in everybody. Because, by the way, this offensive line did a great job pass blocking. So my question is, why didn't you take a shot? What was the problem? What in the last drive, they basically didn't really do much. They handed the ball off on their very last drive, and then they got bogged down and kicked the 50-yard field goal as they threw a bad pass to Darius Slayton, again behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Like you said, my biggest issue with this offense now is the lack of, like you said, any kind of. They just don't threaten teams downfield in any way, shape, or form, and that's just not good enough against the good teams, man. Like you said, it was good enough Sunday night. It worked. It was able to get the job done, but it's not going to be good enough against the better competition. And if we do make it to the postseason, we're playing against better competition. You got to open this offense up some more, man. It's
You
got
got
to
to open
find
it
the
up.
ability to score points, man.
The thing is, like I
Because
said,
you just have to. I mean, Saquon Barkley is a horse, man. He can, but at the same time, he can't do it all on his own, obviously. And you got to
and
be able to, got to just do some more. You got to do more offense. You just got
well,
to do more. It's frustrating to watch.
Well, the thing is, when you don't do that, you're hindering your best player, right? Because if you open it up a little bit more, now your best player has lanes to run in instead of running up the back of his lineman because the lanes are clogged, right? So really what they need to do, and I know people want Daniel to be here. Again, I'm not going to get into that debate anymore because no matter what happens, here's the bottom line: if they don't sign him past 4 years, then he's a bridge quarterback, regardless of what you tell me. And if all the lovers of Daniel Jones are going to be like, "See, I told you he's coming back," and all the haters are going to be like, "Oh, well, listen." Bottom line is, if they don't sign him to a longer than 3 years, and they don't give him a 3-year deal with options to get out, he ain't the man. He's just the man for now. Okay, I don't think this team is Super Bowl even worthy. I don't think he's going to be hoisting the Lombardi with them at any time. And this is what you get with a guy when you manage him. Now, I don't want to hear about any of this personnel anymore because Richie James runs a 4.48. You can get him down the field. Darius Slayton runs a 4.4. You can get him down the field. Okay. You got Lawrence Cager, who's pretty fast. We don't even run a seam route with our friggin' tight ends. Okay. So, you want to talk about concepts. You need to do these conceptually. If your offense is built for Saquon Barkley, you need a guy. I've seen guys throughout the NFL in my years of watching take guys who are no names and just the guy has speed. They run him downfield and they just throw it to him. And if they don't catch it, so what? It was like, all right, we're doing it. My analogy I had before we came on is when a 3-point shooter is, or they don't think you're a great 3-point shooting team and they leave you at the 3-point line, you don't just dribble and then try to take a closer shot. You take a couple of those shots. If you hit one, then it changes the whole defense. Now they can't sit back in their zone and double team inside, right? They have to come up and play you. Same thing in the NFL. They can't sit back and just stop the run because now they're going to be worried about going over the top, right? Where's the last play action pass we had? We do play action and nobody even just steps forward. They all drop backwards.
All right, let me give you a stat line, man. 5 catches, 23 yards, 4.6 yards average per catch, and his longest was for 7 yards. That is the stat line for Darius Slayton, who is right now currently the New York Giants' #1 wide receiver. That was his stat line on Sunday night. Darius Slayton is an absolute deep threat receiver. He has been his entire 4-year career thus far. That's what he pretty much does kind of best. Those numbers look like a possession receiver's numbers. A guy that just goes out and gets you a couple little short first downs here and there. We're totally utilizing the talent on this team in the wrong way offensively. There's no reason why Darius Slayton, if he caught the ball 5 times, should only have 23 yards. A receiver like him. I mean, he's not
Exactly.
obviously not a great receiver, obviously, but at the same time, we know his skill set. Those numbers don't match his skill set.
Why don't we run a slant route? I mean, like if you look at him in one of the games with Pat Shermer, right? He did a crossing route. He beat the guy and he outran him. He outraced him to the end zone, right? When's the last time we saw Darius Slayton outrace somebody to the end zone? This guy, I feel like is not, like you're saying, is not being utilized the way we need him to be. And it really is mind numbing. And it brings me back to the focal point because if you look what the Eagles do, you look what the Cowboys do, and you even look what the Commanders do. They don't care who's the quarterback. They make their offense go with what they got. And they don't complain and they don't do it. We sit here and we rein it in. And you got to ask yourself this question: why? No one's been able to answer why. I have an idea, but people don't like that answer. They don't like the answer that I give. And again, I'll tell you right now, the answer is because the quarterback is who he is. Because if you look at his 4 years, and I'm not just going to, see, this is another reason why I'm not signing Daniel Jones to a long-term contract. I'm not judging a guy, A, off of 1 year, on a contract year, because that's never good. And B, I'm not ignoring what happened previously. And what happened previously is he's a pedestrian guy in his career. He's been a pedestrian guy at college. He never put up big numbers, big touchdown numbers. He threw deep occasionally, and ran the football, but he didn't have those kind of numbers. I just believe, to me, that it's the court. If you look at Jalen Hurts, they're letting him rip. I don't care if they have A.J. Brown out there. They're letting it rip because they're like, all right, this guy has commanded the huddle. He knows what he's doing. They do. Dallas Cowboys, same thing. Why do you think Dak Prescott's not been reined in? They let him have his thing. They were very conservative with Cooper Rush. They just ran certain basic plays. Cooper Rush didn't have the same arm strength as Dak Prescott, so he can't make certain throws, right? Commanders, they have that guy throwing all over the yard. The guy is probably the worst quarterback in the NFL. They have him throw all over the yard. But yet our quarterback throws 5 yards a pass.
I mean, and as far as defensively, man, real quick too, defensively, 12 carries, 89 yards, 7.4 yard average per carry.
Wow.
Those numbers belong to the rookie running back for the Washington Commanders, Brian Robinson. And that's not good enough, New York Giants, either defensively. You got to tighten that up as well somewhere. I mean, Landon Collins came in, and he did add a little something to the run support. in this game, but the Commanders still ran for 159 yards on the ground in this game. And like I was just saying, Brian Robinson Jr. himself had 89 yards on 12 carries. And the only thing that stopped Brian Robinson was a stupid, idiotic Washington Commander coaching staff that stopped giving him the ball for whatever reason or another, because he was absolutely gashing the New York Giants defense every time he touched the football, gashing his defense. So
Right, and
thank you,
they went
Washington Commanders, for
for
having a dumb coaching
stupid.
staff.
Exactly,
Because
exactly. Because that to me is and this will dovetail. We'll move into the Minnesota game right now. Right, that to me, if I'm looking at Minnesota, and trust me, folks, I've been in NFL locker rooms. I know that they look at the stats. They build their game plan with the film and with the stats. They got a back named Dalvin Cook. Okay, and Dalvin Cook is having a pretty good year. And they're going to see 7.1 yards a carry. Was that what you said, Mac?
7.4, yeah.
7.4. That's insane. It's insane. Okay, so now everybody who wants me to believe that the Minnesota Vikings are trash and they're garbage and that we're going to be able to beat them, guess what? They're looking at that film, and I guarantee you, their coach is saying, "Listen, Dalvin, we're giving you the rock," and they're going to base their game plan on running the football. And that crowd is going to be loud, and they're going to try to wear us out, score their points, and set up their play action game on that. Because the one thing that you haven't seen this year with the Giants, and it's because they switch up their coverages a bit, is no double moves have beaten them, right? Because they don't have to really worry about the run, because either people are running all over them or they're having trouble stopping the run, right? So here, going into Minnesota, they're a different animal. They can score it at will. They can go from top to bottom. They can layer their passes. And they've got one of the best backs that we don't talk about in football because he plays for Minnesota. Okay? I like Dalvin Cook. I like Dalvin Cook a lot. I think he's up there with Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, Nick
He's a
Chubb.
top back in the league for sure.
You name it. He's in that list. So when they look at that roster, they look at the film, I don't think they're going to deviate the same way that the Commanders did. Remember, the Commanders went down 2 scores, changed their whole game plan, and the Giants kept the time of possession up, and they couldn't do it. All of a sudden, they decided, hey, we have receivers on this team, let's go. Kirk Cousins, hate to say it, better quarterback than Tyler Heineke, mind you, is playing out of his mind right now. You may not like Kirk Cousins, but hey, he's got that team headed in the right direction. The one thing I will say that the Minnesota Vikings don't do, they don't do many RPOs. So don't look for that to happen. You got a guy that stands in the pocket a little bit more. I expect the Giants pass rush to get a few sacks in this game, but I also expect them to hit some big plays and move the football. They got a decent tight end in Hawkinson, who they haven't utilized yet. But I'm sure that's coming soon. They have Adam Thielen, who is a savvy veteran. They have a decent offensive line. They have a quarterback who's competent enough to make plays, and they have Justin Jefferson, arguably the best receiver in football. So
absolutely, they're a loaded football team right now. The New York Giants are going in this game. They're gonna need a little bit of help from the football guys here, and hope for a possible Kirk Cousins collapse. You know how he kind of tends to do that. He's been tending to do that late in some of these seasons when they've been on playoff runs. They're going to have to hope for stuff like that to be on their side, because this is a loaded football team. Like you said, Minnesota Vikings are absolutely a loaded football team, and they're going to be ready to go, geared up and ready to go for this one. I just, real quick, one more thing with that Washington game. I know we weren't going to we talked before the show, say we wasn't going to get into the penalty thing, and we're not going to go deep into it, but I do want to bring up one thing, because it just hit me in the head. I wanted to bring it up. That last play of the game, absolutely that was a pass interference on Darnay Holmes.
yes,
Absolutely should have been called.
right.
And you want to blow it up and you want to talk about it like that, sure, go ahead. But here's the reality. On that exact same play, number 5 was also crawling around on after getting poked in the damn eye. There was nobody's complaining about where the flag was for that. So
illegal hands in the face.
it works both ways. Okay? At the end of the day, it should have been just 2 flags, should have been flags, and they should have been offsetting penalties, whatever, play the damn down over again. But
I think the most egregious penalty was the Terry McLaurin one, where he looks at the ref, and basically the ref just said, kind of turned his back and threw the flag. I thought that was kind of funny.
But here's the thing about that. I'll break that down to you as well. That's a common thing in football. The guys, receivers out there looking to make sure they ask the ref to line up right. But the honest to God truth is, it's not the referee's responsibility to have to tell them yes or no. It's not. That's not like some kind of rule where the referee's got to
No,
communicate with the receiver. So it is what it is. So whatever breakdown of communication they must have had, it is what it is. And he was definitely
but
off the line of scrimmage. I get what you're
I,
saying, but
I know
it's
for a fact, and I'm not trying to get into this. When I played, and I didn't play professional. You went up to the ref to make sure that you were on the line. And they would either say good or they would tell you nothing, which means you'd probably have to move up a smidge. He knows. He's Terry McLaurin. He should know where to line up, but he's also checking in saying, I'm on the line. He communicates with him, and that's why he's like, well, why didn't because I think what Terry was mad about was he's like, I basically asked you, bro, if I'm on the line. But he should know because there was a guy in motion who lined up inside of him. Now, I don't know why
yeah,
I can't tell you what really happened because I wasn't there. Terry McLaurin will, but they're blowing the play up because there's always one year with one call or one play or one stupid thing that the refs do that gets blown up. But two, I'm not gonna lie to you. The NFL doesn't really like the Commanders right now, and it's not because of the players on the field, but their owner is a jerk. So they're not gonna get calls like that. Listen, it happens in all sports. NBA, they like you better than others, and they miss plays across the field. So you can't just complain. This is the problem when you play crappy teams and you're a crappy team yourself, is the refs get accentuated in games because you're not blowing the doors off team, so the penalty doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It's because we're playing such close, tight games, everything's highly scrutinized.
absolutely, man. So we're gonna get right. We're gonna swing right on over to this game right here. We've been already talking about it. New York Football Giants, man, Minnesota Vikings on Sunday. This game, the New York Giants could actually clinch a playoff spot if they win this football game, and a couple other things happen that could possibly actually happen. But Detroit's been on fire right now. I believe if the Giants win and the Detroit Lions lose, the Giants clinch a playoff spot. I believe if the Giants win and the Washington Commanders lose and the Seattle Seahawks both lose, the Giants also will clinch a playoff spot. So a couple different scenarios where the Giants could clinch.
Oh, that's probably going to happen because the
And
Giants, unless they have to win, though. Remember, they have to win. Those are the
yeah,
two
the Giants
scenarios.
have to win. No, the Giants have to win in both scenarios. But I mean, the one is a little more, I think, realistic. If the Giants could actually pull out the victory against Minnesota, because Seattle has a very tough matchup this week, and
Yep.
so do the Washington Commanders.
They play San
So
Fran.
I could literally, possibly, really see both of those teams losing. And the Giants, you just gotta go to Minnesota and get the job done. Find a way to get the job done, and then there you go. You'll be in the postseason. So
I would have more confidence if this game was at home. I mean, they play decent on the road. It's not like they don't play well on the road. And I'd also be a little bit more confident if we have Dory Jackson. I think a lot
yeah,
of
I
Giant
agree.
fans are overlooking the Minnesota Vikings. From at least the people I've talked to and the people I kind of follow, they're not taking this team seriously. Oh, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yo, man, they won 11 games for a reason. This is the NFL. This is not like high school or college where you play a bunch of teams. They have a couple of good wins on their belt. Okay, they beat the Buffalo Bills, arguably the best team on the AFC side. All right. So for me, I don't think they're going to come in arrogantly. I think you're going into an environment that we haven't seen, a playoff environment, mind you. It's going to be loud. It's going to be raucous. It's going to be, you think it was loud at FedEx Field? Well, guess what? In Mercedes-Benz Dome or whatever the fuck they play, US Bank
Yeah,
Stadium, I don't know.
I don't know what it's called anymore. It's not. It's not. Mercedes is New Orleans, but
Who cares? They
It's
play in
not
a
called the
dome.
Metrodome no more. They play in the dome now. Yeah.
Right. They play in a beautiful stadium that they love. Okay, I don't even know if the Super Bowl is there this year. I don't know where the Super Bowl is, but um, they're playing their best
Super Bowl's in
football.
Arizona.
And to let you know, they still have a fighting chance of losing the second seed if they don't win out. Right? If they lose a few games and the 49ers win a few games, they could be the number 3 seed, and San Francisco could be the number 2 seed. And let me tell you something, folks. That seeding is important, and I'll tell you why. Sometimes a team like, let's say, oh, I don't know, the Commanders, right? They happen to get there, or the Cowboys, they happen to get there, and they've knocked out the Eagles. Guess where they're going? They're going to go to San Fran or Minnesota, and you want to play a game at your building more so than going on the road. So Well, it doesn't have the same implications as about 15, 20 years ago when the first two teams got buys. It still means something because if that team, let's say they win their game one, right, and then they go to Philadelphia and the divisional round is played, and Philadelphia loses to whoever they play, right, and Minnesota wins. The championship game is now at your house in your building. So you want that seeding so you have that advantage. So they're going to be playing for something on Sunday, as well as the 49ers who are playing the Commanders. These games are huge this week for everybody, not just the Giants, but everybody. You got two meaningful football games. This one is to get you at the doorstep. Now you have to open it. Let's see if the Giants can do that. I think it's going to be a tall order. Because and here's some reasons why while you're sitting there rolling your eyes, calling me a negative fan out there, here's my reasons why, and this is why I always give you bullet points. One, they don't have much going for them on offense, and I'm not. That's just not just me. That's the entire year they've been like this. They've been very reserved. They don't score more than 20 points a game. That's one. Two, the loss of Adoree Jackson is going to be another hindrance to this team, especially when you got a team like Minnesota. Three, the dome. The dome affects people very differently when you're in there and it's loud, and they have a different crowd. It's not like the dome in New Orleans where they're chanting "Who Dey." They got a skull clap and all that, and a horn and all this craziness that goes on. And my last point is we're on the road, and you can't always play these games where you're going to have to be tight. You're going to have to score points. That's what you're going to need to do in the playoffs. The 49ers can get away with it because their defense is that good, but most other teams don't. And you need to score points to win. Look what LA did last year. Okay, they went to Tampa Bay and the game ended 35-28 because they needed to score points.
I mean, you're right. The offense is going to have to show up in this one, but at the same time, there's another thing I think we've been downplaying here. And honestly, I've been a fan, New York Giants fan, long time. We played Minnesota like once. We play Minnesota, fairly often, not, every year, obviously, but fairly often. We played them enough in my lifetime. I've seen them, and we don't have a good history against this football team. Something about those colors or something.
One good game.
Something about those colors, that purple and gold over there in Minnesota, man. Eli Manning.
One good game.
It was absolutely Eli Manning's kryptonite. Absolutely Eli Manning's kryptonite.
Well, we had 2000 where we beat them 41-0, but in 1997, 3 years prior, they beat us on an onside kick and came back and won that game. Jake Reed should have been out of bounds, but hey, replay was taking a hiatus at that point. And then Eli Manning, I think he threw 4 picks against them twice.
He threw 4 picks. He threw 2 pick sixes to Darren Sharper, I believe, to the same guy.
Oh my Lord!
In the same game, Minnesota was absolutely Eli Manning's kryptonite throughout his career.
Yes, and I think he had a bad game prior to that 2 pick 6 game where it was like, oh, he plays him bad. He threw like 3 picks the game before that, and then this one, of course, 2 back-to-back pick 6. So it is what it is, man. Let's keep it rolling. Let's try to build off a win. It's not going to be easy. And
but it's a big game, and both teams are going to have a lot of pressure on them. Like I said, coming into this one, like I said, the Minnesota Vikings just trying to keep pace with the Eagles and for that home field advantage throughout the playoffs. There's a possibility mathematically. It's not very likely, but it's a possibility.
Don't they play Sunday? For them. Don't Pittsburgh play Sunday? On Christmas Day? Sunday? Doesn't Pittsburgh play Sunday? I thought they played Sunday.
They do.
Because Chad, who we would have loved Pittsburgh to win that game as well, says, "What's up, Mac and Adam? I hope my Steelers can get a win from Franco Harris on this Saturday night. I'm hoping they can do that too, man. He deserves it. They deserve it. And heck, you're still in the playoffs.
Saturday night. They're late game on Saturday.
Oh, they're late in the game. Oh, no, I'm mistaken. Excuse me. Pardon me for the misinformation. But hey, man, I know we're not talking about the Steelers, but yeah, we talked about that early on quickly for the legend, and they're honoring his number and retiring his jersey. So, or at least putting him in the Ring of Honor or some type of ceremony they're having for him. And it'll probably be a little bit more sentimental now because he's not there. But our hearts and prayers go out to that family and a great ambassador of the game and a great ambassador for the city of Pittsburgh and the Steeler fan base. But getting back to it, I guess we can move on from here. I think some defensive keys are you got to get pressure on Kirk Cousins. You got to make him uncomfortable back there. He will carve you up. Look what he did to the Colts. He can pass. The Cowboys is the blueprint I would try to take. Obviously, you don't have the horses like the Cowboys have to kind of contain them, but they did. So it's one of those games where if you want to be a legit playoff contender and you want people to believe you got to win this game.
I mean, as much as the Thibodeau and Aziz coming from the edges is important. And this one, I think you gotta get that pressure from Big Leo, Dexter Lawrence, right in Kirk Cousins' face, right at the
Yes.
gut, man. That's the stuff that disrupts Kirk Cousins. Those are things that can force him to make really bad mistakes, and we're gonna need that because, like you
Can
said,
we
we don't.
can we get an interception? I mean, my God, hits you in the freaking hand.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We don't have guys. Yeah, that's another one. My man, he could have ended the game. He could have ended the game
Right there and there. We wouldn't be
right
talking
there.
about these
Just catch the
penalties
damn
and shit.
ball. Just catch the ball, and then that penalty would have never made a difference anyway because the game would have been over. You just got to run the damn timeout. But that's a whole different. We Giants
And
got to
can,
figure out ways to
and
start picking some of these passes off when they come in their
and
direction, man.
throw the ball into the end zone. When you get the ball, Giants, if you get a ball in a short field, do what the Eagles did. They got the ball in the short field. They went deep. They said, "Fuck it, we're going to try to get the home run ball." Don't be doing these little dink and dunks, and then what you do is you get him at the 5 yard line. Hope he dives in for a touchdown. Throw it in the end zone. Let your quarterback loose. If you want me to believe that this kid deserves to be here, you need to have him show me that he is the guy and not some guy that's just holding the seat warm for somebody else. These are the games I need to see. I knew he would have he didn't even have his best game against Commanders. That's one of the best teams he has, right? I need him to have a good game. We need to figure it out. I don't care if you have to put max protection, do something, roll out. You got to figure out something defensively. Don't give up the penalties that you did because this team will capitalize on your mistakes. They did it again. The Commanders got a drive where they got a penalty because of Darnay Holmes kept the drive alive. Darnay Holmes, you're a marked man. Be careful out there because they're going to look for you. I do not want this game to be like, oh, Darnay Holmes had a penalty that cost them in the end and they kick a field goal to win or something like that. Those are what's going to come down to hurt you in the playoffs.
What's Darnay Holmes, number 30? He's number 30,
Yes.
right? They,
Yes.
they
That's how many
got that
penalties we have.
ingrained in Kirk Cousins' mind and head right now. He said, you go out there, you look find number 30.
Right.
You find number
530
30 and you
and
attack him.
44. 30 and
Yeah,
44.
and
44
you
can't
attack
catch an
him.
interception. 30 is going to give you a freebie. You know what I mean?
So, yeah,
And
they got
I
the
wouldn't be
Giants got to be
surprised.
aware of that.
Excuse me. I wouldn't be surprised if they do a hard count to get these defensive edge rushers who are now coming off the ball fast in a loud stadium to go on a silent count or to go on a hard count to get them offsides.
We'll see, man. It's going to be a big one. Saturday, 1 o'clock on NFL on Fox. New York Giants at the Minnesota Vikings, man. Let's
Fortunately,
see.
I'll be traveling during the game, so I'll only be listening to the game, which is going to be pulling my hair out. Maybe I'll have my wife drive the car,
I
but
was going to say, just drive safely, brother. Just drive safely.
we will see. I will be here on Wednesday. That's my goal. I do not want to be in a ditch somewhere come Christmas Eve because no matter what happens, it'll be a fun night. I got a lot of family I'll be hanging out with. Get to schmooze it up with one of my good friends who's a Cowboy fan who they're probably going to get their butts kicked. So we'll probably be miserable together, but who knows?
Well, we will see, man. And so next, we will go out to the West Coast, to Silicon Valley. San Francisco 49ers hosting the Washington Commanders. The Brock Purdy led San Francisco 49ers. With their Mr. Irrelevant, that they have not lost a beat, man. As a matter of fact, they're right now also in position, man, is the leapfrog the Dallas Cowboys and Minnesota Vikings here. Or the Dallas Cowboys are not to worry
Well,
about so
the
much.
Dallas Cowboys in the wild card. They can
Yeah,
leapfrog
but
Minnesota.
they can leapfrog Minnesota. They are definitely in position to get that number 2 seed. I believe they are mathematically out of the first seed conversation, but they can definitely still get that number
I
two seed.
if the Eagles were somehow to lose out and the 49ers are somehow to win out, I think there's a possibility, a slim one, that they could get that done. You know what I'm saying?
It would take the Eagles having to absolutely lose all three of their games that they have remaining on their schedule, and then even then it would come down to a tiebreaker. It would then come down to a tiebreaker between them because what you call it already has 4 losses. San Fran has 4 losses already on the
Right.
season.
Right. Well, but I mean, they play in a harder schedule, harder division, you know. So, but it is possible, and that's why they're still going to be playing hard. And I think that's why the Commanders needed this game the most on Sunday, because they were going into this buzzsaw, and it's a faux pas on them. I heard something about the Commanders not preparing for something. Well, that's on you, okay? And against this 49er team, I think Tyler Heineke is going to be under siege. I wouldn't be surprised if they put Carson Wentz in at some point and give him reps to kind of open this offense up a little bit more. And I think the Tyler Heineke experience is over. I think they will be exploring their options in the offseason. And it goes to show what the 49ers are going to do, right? They lost their starting quarterback at the beginning of the year. They bring in Jimmy Garoppolo after he was essentially cast off to the scrap heap. They make him take a pay cut and say, "Earn your money back, you bum. We don't like you. Earn your money back." He took a pay. He was making $24 million. They gave him $6 million with the ability to move it to $16 million, right? So he goes down there. He's playing. He's humming. Now he has McCaffrey, Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel. And oh, by the way, he's playing average. Right? So it doesn't matter that you got weapons because you're playing average. Now they're not asking him to do much because guess what? Their defense is good, so he doesn't have to be the focal point of their team. Now Brock Purdy comes in, and they don't even condense the playbook. You know why I know they don't condense the playbook? Because they did a double screen pump fake. Who the hell does a double screen pump fake? The 49ers do. And he hits George Kittle up the seam, Giant fans, for a touchdown. And so this is what I mean when I tell you about the quarterback play. It doesn't matter necessarily about your personnel, because the 49ers could have easily have just said, "You know what, kid, hand the ball off. We're going to throw 5-yard passes and make everybody do it." No, they designed the offense, they kept going, and they made plays.
And by the way, they're doing this now without Debo.
Right.
They're doing this without Debo now, who was lost for the year, I believe.
No, he's not lost for the year. He just won't play. No, he's not on IR. He'll be back for the playoffs, but he will be. He will. Well, technically, yes, he will miss the remainder of the season, but it's not. It won't mean he's not on IR, which means he can't come back if they make a playoff run. Which I mean, shouldn't say if, when they are in the playoffs. I don't think that they will lose him. If you put him on IR, season-ending IR, he doesn't get to come back. So, and mind you, like you said, Brock Purdy, you got to give him credit. He's playing better. Okay, he's Mr. Irrelevant, and dare I say, they might have not necessarily their man, but they may have a guy where they can kick Jimmy G to the curb and say, "Hey, listen, we'll let Trey Lance and Brock Purdy, fight for this quarterback position in the offseason."
I mean,
especially if they go far.
Be leaning more in that direction anyway. Now that you would see the kind of the guy that Brock Purdy can be, and you still got to find out about Trey Lance when he comes back from the injury next year. You got to, you invested a number 3 overall pick in him, so either way he's going to always have that leg up regardless because you invested too much in him. You got to see. You look at Trey Lance, who had a whole 2 years to learn the system, couldn't get the ball rolling. This guy has 1 year of the system. He's a third-round quarterback. Third-round quarterback. He's a third-string quarterback, Mr. Irrelevant, comes in one game after the guy gets injured, has a good game in that game, and has parlayed it into 2 other games of winning. So, if you look at it like that in the measuring stick, Trey Lance, you need to start studying, buddy, because come next July, if you struggle, it's not going to be your job. Well, yeah, but this game, coming into this game, this is for the Washington Commanders, man. They need to figure out a way to go out to San Fran and pull out a W here. I don't know if they're going to be capable of doing that, but this is the do or die game for the Washington Commanders now. This is it. This is make.
I think this is their playoff.
They lose this game, they can kiss their playoff hopes goodbye.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say this: if Seattle somehow upsets Kansas City, which I don't think they will. But they'll have two more games, right? The Giants and Commanders basically need to get to 9 wins to get a shot. Giants will have a chance to clinch if they lose against Minnesota, probably against the Colts, and then definitely probably against the Eagles, right? Commanders, this is it. You have a game against the 49ers and the Cowboys and the Cleveland Browns. Your best shot was against the Giants. You blew it. If you blow this game, good night the lights. I guarantee I'm going to put this out there right now. The Detroit Lions. That's right. You heard it here first. The Detroit Lions are going to end up being the 7th seed or the 6th seed in the playoffs.
Actually, I agree with the Miz. I seen him on, I don't know if it was on the video on the stream or something earlier. He was talking. I actually agree that I think when it's all said and done, the New York Giants and the Detroit Lions are going to be the two teams that clinch that had that 6 and 7 spot, whatever positioning they'll be in. But I believe it'll
Right.
be the Giants and the Detroit Lions. I do it because Seattle
Well,
with Seattle put themselves in a bad spot as well with these last couple weeks coming up short, and in this tough game, like if Seattle loses against Kansas City, they pretty much played themselves out of it too.
right.
You
Well, you
saw
need you need to have the Lions beat us because I'd rather go to Minnesota and play, even though that's harder than playing in San Francisco because I think San Francisco is going to be a dogfight. I think it's going to be hard. That defense, when I say that defense is championship caliber, they shut teams out in the second half. They are the best team in football in the second half of football games and shutting out teams. Okay,
they got some
so
dogs over there.
if you can't score points, it's going to be locked. This game could be over at halftime. If the Commanders are down, like if they only score 3 points and the 49ers are up 14-0, you might as well go night the lights.
Well, we'll see, man. The Commanders are going to have to come out and, like I said, figure it out. And honestly, I feel like the best bet is to ride that horse, man. Brian Robinson Jr. He is a
Yeah, I
stud,
don't know
man.
why. I don't know why they don't do that.
They that kid is going to be a problem for years to come here in the NFC East division. And they need to go ahead and turn around and put that ball in his belly and ride that horse, man. Ride that
You
pony,
think Ron
bro.
Rivera gets
Because
fired?
I don't know. That would be drastic to me, I feel like, because
You need the new offensive coordinator and a quarterback. That's for
you
sure.
definitely do that. They need someone more competent calling the plays. And because, like I said, this past Sunday night, they went away from what was their absolute best weapon in that football game, which was Brian Robinson. They went away from that completely. The Giants didn't exactly we took the lead, like you said, went up by 2 scores, but that doesn't mean you got to rip up your game plan and completely abandon it, especially when it's working as well as it was. Brian Robinson was absolutely, like I said, gashing the Giant defense, and thank you for going away from it for no reason other than something you guys decided to do. So you guys got to go out there, utilize Brian Robinson Jr. more, and I think that'll be their best chance of going out there and stealing a game in San Fran. I don't think it's likely, though. I see the San Francisco 49ers still upending them because, like you said, both teams are playing for a lot at stake. But I think San Fran is just right now, they're just cooking. They've gotten absolutely red hot at the right time of the
So
season.
they're on their march. They've been in the playoffs the past couple of years. They
Yes.
lost. They missed the championship game last year in Green Bay, getting a chance to go play Tampa. Tampa. No, excuse me. They lost in the championship game to the LA Rams due to their quarterback being an idiot. So this is it. I think if there's one team I don't want to see in the playoffs, it's them. But that brings us to the game of the weekend.
The game of the weekend in the NFC heavyweight title fight. This
Yes.
game, man, has already headlines all over the place for this game, man. The Philadelphia Eagles headed down to Jerry's World. 13-1 Eagles. With the Cowboys, what, got 3 losses?
4.
No, they only got 3 losses. I
Do
think,
they?
don't they?
No,
Oh,
they
they
have
got
4.
do they have 4 now? Oh, they lost. Right, they lost on Sunday. Stupid idiot. Yeah, they lost on Sunday, so they got 4 losses now. So the Cowboys still have an outdoor shot
They don't got
at
no
the, at,
shot.
win, at winning the no.
Well,
As long as they're mathematically in it, they got an outdoor shot. And the fact that they got a head-to-head game with the Eagles right now, that's going to help
well,
their cause a little bit as well. I mean, they still
first,
mathematically got a shot at the division.
Hurst not being there could be a difference maker. We'll find out. As the game is in Jerry's World, like you just said, I think it's going to be loud. I think it's going to be raucous, and I think the Cowboys are going to give them everything that they can handle. And Gardner Minshew is going to really find. We're going to find out what Gardner Minshew is, because if Gardner Minshew does well in this game, guess what? He's going to be talked about in the quarterback carousel next year. I'm telling you that right now. If he goes out and wins a couple of these games and cements himself as the Gardner Minshew that we saw, because of course, in Jacksonville they're like, well, whatever, you're a 6th-round pick. Draft status means a lot, people. It really does. That's how they look at you. That's how they judge you, right? Look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady's the greatest of all time because he's a 6th overall pick. Mind you, Peyton Manning and Drew Brees. Peyton Manning was pick number 1, and Drew Brees was a 2nd-round pick. If they were doing Tom Brady, as we would talk about 3 of the greatest of all time, but because of that draft status, that always sticks with you. So he's a 6th-round pick. He's got to come in, and we'll see what he can do. Their offense is going to be changed a little bit. I think you're going to see a lot more Miles Sanders. So if you got Miles Sanders on your fantasy team, I would play him. I would start him. I think he's going to have a huge game. A.J. Brown, I would sit him if I were you, because I don't know if they're going to go the same route. But we'll see. We'll see if Nick Sirianni is like the Giants and say, well, our quarterback is not good, or they're going to open the playbook and let this guy wing it around the yard.
Well, here's where I slightly disagree a little bit, Adam. It's only because maybe call me I'm one of the biggest Gardner Minshew fans that exists on this planet. I don't know. I think people don't put enough respect on this kid's name. I think people seem to forget this guy has legitimate starting NFL experience at the quarterback spot. And
I
like
agree.
I said, he quarterbacked a bad Jacksonville team his rookie season, and he overall wasn't bad. It wasn't like he was the reason for their troubles. He was out there playing his butt off most weeks, and that team just didn't have enough going on with it. You know what I mean? So I think put him out there on the field with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Miles Sanders, the other guys in the backfield. Like I said, that offensive line that's in front of him protecting him. And I think, like I said, the Eagles have a very capable backup quarterback here. If Jalen Hurts is anything less than 100% on Saturday, he should not be running out of that tunnel in uniform, because you need Jalen Hurts for January in the playoffs. Gardner Minshew is definitely good enough to
Right.
weather the storm for the Philadelphia Eagles. All they need basically is like one more win to seal the deal. You think
Right.
Gardner Minshew is not capable of getting them one more win in the next 3 games? You're
Oh,
crazy. He might,
I
even
think
if he was to go out there and lose on Saturday against the Cowboys, he's more than capable of still getting at least one more W in this regular season and
oh,
preserving that number 1 spot for the
I
Philadelphia
think
Eagles.
I think he is good enough. All I'm not disagreeing with you on the Gardner Minshew stuff. It's great to have him as a backup, and I think the Eagles are very thankful for having him right now. All I'm saying is that we went from the MVP right now to Gardner Minshew, who
Well, yeah. See that.
who is gonna. I'm just saying that for the Eagles, the offense changes slightly because you don't have Hurst running the football to bail you out. Right, not saying that Gardner Minshew can't scramble. It's just he's a scrambler, meaning if he sees trouble or he can pick up a first down, he's going to run and get you a first down. They're not going to do I want to see if they do the quarterback sneaks on third and 1 now, because that was their bread and butter staple. Let's see if they do that. Let's see how the offense changes, because it's going to be a big game. This is not the game I wanted to have Jalen Hurst out of. You kind of want to have your guys at full strength to see, but we'll find out. We'll find out how good of coach Nick Sirianni is, how good of a team this is, because if they keep this game, if the Cowboys lose to Gardner Minshew, you're not going to the Super Bowl, and you're probably not going to make it past the divisional round. I hate to tell you that. Wild card, yes. Divisional round, no. Especially since you're going to Tampa Bay right now. You can all but lock it up that they're going to the South right now. The Cowboys are going to play whoever is in the South.
It won't matter if it's because that whole division is still in it, because that division is so bad. Any one of the 4 teams can still win the division. That's how bad that division
Yes,
is
right.
down
I mean,
in
my
the
God.
NFC South right now.
Ugh. Ugh.
Any one
So-
of the 4 teams can still win the division.
But for me, the Cowboys defense has to step up here. They gave up 30-something points to the Jaguars. You need to shore it up a little bit. You need to be that if they have penalties, if they keep the Eagles in the game because stupidity, the Eagles are going to beat you with Gardner Minshew. And I'm not saying they can't beat you with him without it anyways. I mean, he has a whole host of weapons that he can use to play those games. But it really will matter. It really matters because now, and you got to think 2 games he's going to play with that starting unit, and then the third game they're probably not going to put in AJ Brown or Devontae Smith. They're probably going to see Boston Scott and all that, but you got to win this game.
I mean, they do. I mean, I just, we talked about it earlier when we were talking about going over the Eagles and Cowboys. I mean, and Bears game from Sunday. And you said something that was absolutely correct. I think if Jalen Hurts wasn't in that game, the Eagles would have lost that football game. Gardner, if that the game went the same, if Gardner Minshew was quarterback in that game, and it started off the same way it did, that's what I'll be worried more about, that snowball effect from your
Right.
quarterback, where Jalen Hurts was able to rise above all of that, the early
Right.
mistakes, and get the job and still get the job done. Plus, also, you're not getting 3 touchdown runs from Gardner Minshew in the game. That's also what wasn't going to be a thing. So that is a difference. There is going to be a difference in the Eagles offensively, but I still believe, like I said, I just believe Gardner Minshew is
You're
more than
picking
capable
you're picking
to
the
get the job
Eagles.
done. I'm picking the Eagles because they're the best team in football, and I think they only can stop themselves as far as
Well, you know what? Let me have a
winning.
little fun. Let me have a little fun with it right now, and I'm going to pick the Dallas Cowboys,
Hey,
just because they're desperate. They need to win this game, and I think they're going to pull out all the stops. And as Mike McCarthy is any worth any weight in gold. And personally, after last week's game, I would have fired McCarthy and made Dan Quinn the interim coach, because I think he would have had that team playing better. But if they want to have the league believe, because right now the Cowboy talk to the Super Bowl has gone down, right? Up until
absolutely.
last week, it was Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl. They got the teeth kicked in against Jacksonville, and now they're like, all those people are like, shh, not the Super Bowl. So now if you want to be that contending team and you want to represent, because at one point I had a thought process of it was going to be the Bills versus Cowboys in a rematch of one of their Super Bowls. Right now, the Cowboys need to pick it up, man. Pick it up, because they're not doing. And I don't normally like to pick the Cowboys, but I don't know why I'm picking them today. This maybe it's because I'm seeing my friend who's a Cowboy fan, but I think they're going to upset the Eagles.
I like the Eagles here, and I think here's my hot take for all you Eagle fans out there in Philadelphia. Here we go. Not only are the Eagles going to win, whether it's Gardner Minshew or Jalen Hurts out there, I think it's most likely going to be Gardner Minshew. Devontae Smith is going to be the one to take you over the top this Saturday. I believe Devontae
Ooh,
Smith is going to have a monster performance out there this Saturday against the Dallas Cowboys,
not just
and
because it's on your fantasy team, Mac.
I think he's going to go for the hat trick, just like Zay Jones did to the Cowboys a week ago. Yes, indeed, and some of it's because he's on my fantasy team and we're in the playoffs, but also because I just think this kid's going to go out there and have a huge game. It just seems like,
What a
as
great
good as
problem to
we
have,
already
right?
as good as we know he already is anyway, he seems to be getting better and better and better. I mean, people talked about his size when he was coming out, and that's what made him slip in the draft. Somewhat slip in the draft anyway. And
Idiots.
talking about he was too little to play, and then he's too small, he's too frail. He's a tough guy. He's a route runner. He's a great route runner, and his hands are amazing. He's just an absolute playmaker, and he just keeps getting better and better and better. And when you got a guy like AJ Brown opposite of you, you know it is what it is, man. That's going to
Well,
only help open up doors for you.
if the Cowboys would be smart to not flip flop corners. I know that they want to do that, but I feel like if you don't if you kind of, because the Giants did this once. They had Janoris Jenkins, but they didn't flip flop Janoris. He never went with the number one. He would just stay on his side. He was a right cornerback. He did well, and he couldn't control the right side. If I'm them, I know that I probably know that they're going to probably put Diggs all over him or double team Brown all over the field. So if I'm if and Dallas Goddard just got activated, so I don't know if he's going to play, but if he's healthy, I'm bringing him as a safety blanket if I'm the Eagles, because with that being said, the Cowboys are going to try to do certain things, but I just feel, I hate to say this, I hate picking both these teams to win. I just wish they would end in a tie, to be honest with you, but
That would be awesome.
but I just think the Cowboys have a lot more to lose.
They do, and they're going to come in here hungry, but they've been talking a lot of trash,
Oh
and that
man,
could that And so we'll see
Well,
what
Micah
happens,
Parsons,
man.
if Micah Parsons doesn't have a big game, he needs to get off that Von Miller podcast. Okay, you need to go out there because right now we think you're the best defensive player, arguably in the NFL. Right now, I don't know who's much better than he is in terms of overall talent. Now you got to back it up. If you're going to go on people's podcasts and talk, that ruins careers. Look at Odell Beckham Jr. He went on there with Lil Wayne. I don't know why Lil Wayne had to be next to Odell when he was with Justin Anderson, but whatever. He went on there and told him how much he hated New York. He was out of New York. You went on there and told him how much you beat the Eagles and all this crap. Guess what? The spotlight is on you. He wouldn't want it any other way, but you need to go out there and perform. And I'm afraid for Gardner Minshew's life if they somehow get to him, because I think, Micah Parsons is going to be Micah Parsons. He was angry last game. He did not like to lose. I think they're going to spend a little extra time in the film room this week, and we'll see what happens. So Merry Christmas to all.
I had
It's
to
going to be
get
a fun
clever with
Christmas.
him. I mean, because the Eagles' offensive line is probably the best in football, man. So they're gonna have to get a little clever. It's not gonna. I mean, Michael Parsons is a game record, but it's not going to be like
Yeah, we
going
picked the
against the New York
Giants.
Giant O line. So
We picked the Giants Vikings already. I have the Vikings winning this game. I just think there's too much talent, Jeff. I just wanted to make your comment. But this game,
I didn't make an actual official pick in that game because
oh,
I kind of still don't.
excuse
I
me.
mean, I'm just saying I still don't really, I'm still mowing it over how I got to, put weigh everything, and but I'm not.
AKA, folks, Max picking the Giants to win. Okay, if he can't, if he's mulling it over, he's looking for every possibility to figure out why the Giants are going to lose. So that's why he's dancing around it. He's probably going to have a couple mad elves, and then Richie James is going to pop into his head, and he's going to be like, "Ha ha, that's it. That is
Had a
it."
mad elf earlier today.
Oh well. Anyways, I ain't got much more on the game. So
Yeah, I don't have much here, man. I appreciate everybody, man. Y'all coming out, man, showing love
Jeff
in the
thinks
chat
the same thing I do.
like you do, man. But it's a good chance. I gotta mull things over for real. I gotta like really go over everything and just and really find reasons that how and why we can beat this football
Kenny
team on
Galladay.
Saturday in their home thing. Kenny Galladay, if he makes a catch on Saturday, that will be amazing. If he makes
If
a
he makes a
touchdown
catch,
catch, it will be even
you
more
should
amazing.
you should have a mad elf for if he catches it.
I mean, look, at this point, just a catch. I mean, we're talking about we were talking about
Hey,
touchdowns before, but hell, just get a catch at this point. Like
no,
catch the day.
just get a minute, just get a play, just get a play.
he
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 barely
had
even
one
got a
on
play.
Sunday.
He
He
had
had
one
one on
play,
Sunday night.
one
One
play.
play.
Oh my God, this guy's getting paid $72 million, and they give him a play.
One play.
Hey Kenny, hey, how's your jersey looking? You doing laundry? Your laundry good? Oh wait, you don't need to switch your jersey out because you didn't sweat. You didn't sweat much. Oh, don't
Oh
worry,
my
we'll keep that
goodness.
jersey. Oh man, we're going off the rails here, but
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what we're gonna do without Tay Crowder either, man. I just have no
oh my
idea if we're
God,
gonna be able to
uh,
overcome the
oh,
loss of Tay Crowder.
Jay Crowder. Oh my God, screw that guy.
But
Way to go,
everybody,
Mister
man,
Irrelevant. Now you're irrelevant.
now you are, and I don't think anybody's pounding down the doors, man.
Nobody's waiting in the waiver lines to pick him up, huh? Not like Sammy Watkins, you know.
Well, one of mine actually, Philly. That's a good question. Can't think of none offhand too well, except for one that stands out. I wasn't. I think it was on Christmas Eve, not Christmas Day. But
Giants, Jets.
Tiki Barber had probably the game of
Oh,
his life. I can't remember. It was either against the Raiders. I think it was
that
against
was
the
that was New
Raiders.
Year's Eve.
Was it
That
New
was New
Year's
Year's Eve.
Eve?
Yes.
Was it against the Raiders or the Chiefs or
Oh
something
yeah,
like?
where he had that
I think it was against one of the.
70-yard run,
Oh my goodness,
95-yard
man! I
run.
feel like he ran for like 250 yards
He
in that
broke the,
game or
the
something.
single season Giant game record. But I will say this Christmas Eve game, Giants versus Jets 2011. Jets were talking smack. Giants came in there. Victor Cruz 99 yards later. Good night, the lights. Oh, we are on to our Super Bowl run.
I was working that day and had the game on, man.
Yeah, I was working that day too. I was working on getting fatter, eating pizza with my friend who is actually a Cowboy fan who I'm going to visit this weekend. We went to his house. His mom came in and asked us, I'll never forget. She's like, "Are you going to church?" I said, "No, we're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere for a few minutes." And as a matter of fact, my friend's calling me now. How ironic. Oh my God, he's calling me now. Crazy. Are you on mute, Mac? I can't hear you.
I am on mute. My fault. Well, I was at that day. I was at work that day. I'm sorry, I had my mic muted, but it was remember that play happened, and I was just and I was like I was at work and it happened, and I just blacked out. Like I forgot I was even at work. I just absolutely went crazy. Like I was at home watching the game, doing my own thing, man. I was literally making somebody's like cheesesteak or something, whatever I was doing, and just like turned around, saw that play, and was just like, fuck the
Yeah.
cheesesteak.
Oh, it's
Wow.
burnt.
I mean, just went absolutely crazy, man. Like
Man,
it was. And
it was
I
great.
forgot that was Christmas Eve against the Jets, man. That was a big game for the New York Giants too that year, man.
You
It was a
don't play
big
many
game
games on Christmas Eve,
in turning around their season.
but that was the one I'll never forget. I'll never forget where I was. The guy who just called me, I was at his house. Like I said, his mom came in to try to get us to go to church. We said F that, or what I said F that. I'm not going anywhere right now, especially with this game. And then the Cowboys were playing right after, and it was in 2011, and the Cowboys ended up losing and we won. And it was just a great day all around. For me at least. He wasn't so happy about it, but he had to deal with me on the drive up to where we were going. So it was great. I don't know what we're going to entail this week, but people, I want to say this: have a safe and happy holiday season, Christmas day. Sit back, enjoy it with family. No matter the outcome, it should be fun. We got football on Saturday. We got football on Sunday. Get the NBA on Sunday if you guys like that. All day, full slate of games. That's always a tradition I like to do. And, of course, hanging out with my family, and hopefully we can unwrap a win. You see what I did there? Unwrap a win on Saturday evening.
Absolutely. I couldn't say it any better myself, man. Merry Christmas, everyone, man. And make sure y'all tune in. Right back with us next Wednesday, same time, same channels, for another edition of the Real Deal NFC East Round-Up. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Ho, ho, ho.
Peace. I'd like to thank you all for listening. If you was feeling this, please take time to subscribe and smack them likes. Feel free to drop a comment and let me know what you think. Don't forget to ring that bell so you know when I'm dropping new content. It's your boy, Mac the Giants Fan. You can find me on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at Mac the Giants Fan. That's MacDa Giants Fan.